Hello, craft and crime friends. So today's St. Patrick's Day. It's my birthday. So I thought that we would do a special episode today because it's my birthday. So I haven't really had an episode planned. I'm trying to just kind of work out the logistics of it all. But today we're going to do a craft and crime. So today's craft is going to be working with epoxy. I'm very low on my cup supply. I have to put it in order. So I have been getting different molds and working with them. So my son likes to play chess. So I made him a chess piece set, and then I'm going to make another one so that I can sell it at an upcoming craft fair. We are going to make dominoes, and then if we have time, we're going to paint some dominoes that I've already made. You got to paint the dots on the inside. So we're going to start with the epoxy stuff. I already started this. I just got to mix it. So I'm going to start and you can watch me do my craft. So like I said, we're going to be doing chess pieces, and we're also going to do the dominoes. They are going to be glow in the dark. So let's get started and have some true crime and crafting fun. So it's a hot summer day in July of 1979. An elderly woman is walking along Nesky Lake Road in Atlanta, Georgia. And she stumbles upon the bodies of two young boys. Edward Hope Smith, and he was 14. Alfred Evans, and he was 13. The boys had disappeared 4 days apart, but these two boys would become known as the first two alleged victims of the Atlanta child killer. Between July of 1979 and May of 1981, Wayne Williams is believed to be responsible for 30 murders. But at the end, by the end of it, he was only convicted of 2, and he was sentenced to 2 life sentences with the possibility of parole. During the 2-year crime spree, police had no idea who was killing African American children. So in this time, there were African American children that were just going missing, and then found murdered. And police had no idea who was doing it. But on May 22nd of 1981, that all changed when the detectives got their first major break when a police officer heard a splash. On May 24th of 1981, the nude body of Nathaniel Carter, age 27, was found floating downstream a few miles from where the detectives had heard the splash just 2 days before by the body was found by 2 young boys who were just down there fishing. Nathaniel was last seen at the entrance of a theater holding hands with Wayne Williams. Nathaniel was known to solicit sex at the Silver Dollar Saloon and the Camo Lounge. The desk clerk there had said that the last time he had seen Nathaniel was on May 21st in 1981. Then another witness said that he had seen him on May 23rd, which makes it very odd because the police are saying that they heard this splash, and that was, his body that was being disposed of. But that splash was before the 23rd, on the 22nd. So, a little odd that they're saying that they've seen him. So officers, that night, of May 22nd, the officers, on May 22nd, the officers were on a stakeout. It was the final stakeout in the last 3 hours of the stakeout of these officers monitoring bridges down the Chattahoochee River. So, detectives had started finding fibers on the bodies, and of course that was probably announced that they were. So the last 7 victims were dumped in bodies of water. And it is believed that was done to wash away any evidence and fibers that the detectives could find. So one officer was at the bottom of the bridge, and then they had another officer at the top of the bridge in a car. The officer at the bottom of the bridge was a professional swimmer, and he had swum since he was younger. So he knew what the sound of like a body hitting the water was. So he heard the splash, and he immediately radioed up to the officer that was at the top of the bridge and said, "Hey, I think I just heard a body splash in the water." He was shining his light down, and you could see the ripples like spreading out where something had hit the water, but it was no longer on top of the water. And then when he looked up at the bridge, he seen tail lights and then headlights turn on to a vehicle. And then it drove extremely slow across the bridge. Well, the officers at the top of the bridge seen the car coming, but it was so close to the edge and the railing of the bridge that they could only see one headlight coming at them because the rest of the car, the headlight was blocked by the wall of the bridge. So as it came across the bridge, the officer seen that it was a station wagon, a blue station wagon, and the station wagon drove just a little bit. He went into a parking lot where the cops actually were, turned around, and drove back across the bridge, moving extremely slow again. So later, of course, they pull this station wagon over, and the driver of the station wagon identifies himself as Wayne Williams. So Williams presented himself as a freelance photographer and a music promoter. During his questioning that evening, he claimed that he was on his way to audition a woman, Cherie Johnson, as a singer, and she lived near there. Although later, police tried to confirm that, and there was never such a meeting that they could confirm or anyone named that was waiting on him. They could never confirm her or a meeting that was going to happen. While pulled over, detectives noticed gloves and a nylon cord in his passenger seat. According to the investigators, the nylon cord matched ligature marks found on Carter and other victims, but the cord was never taken into evidence because at that time the officers had no reason to hold him, and so they couldn't investigate or take anything out of his car. On June 21st of 1981, though, Williams was arrested and evidence was stacking against him for the murder of Nathaniel. So, again, Nathaniel was the one that was found naked in the river. And what we know at this point when he was arrested, have Eric help you. He was on the bridge the night that they heard the body splash, and then 2 days later, they found a body on just a few miles down the river. There was a nylon cord and gloves in the car the night that he was pulled over. Williams had been handed out flyers in mostly black neighborhoods where it was lower income. And it is said that, this is kind of a side note, it is said that he actually just really truly disliked the poor. I didn't really figure out why they said that, but that is something that was said, that he just truly just did not like the poor. But he was handing out these flyers for 11 to 21-year-olds for a singing group because he was trying to create the next Jackson 5. And if you don't know who the Jackson 5 are, please look it up. It's actually a cool story. Then, another thing that was stacking up against him when he was arrested, he failed FBI polygraph testing, which you cannot, it's not admissible in court, but it's kind of suspicious that you're failing the polygraphs. Fibers from the carpets in Williams' fibers in the carpet from Williams' residence was found on some of his victims, and his dog hairs were also found on victims as well. So he had a lot of evidence that was stacking up against him. I'm looking for my my flame thing. Okay. So a grand jury indicted Williams on first-degree murder in the deaths of Nathaniel Carter and Jimmy Payne. During the trial, he was only being prosecuted for 2 murders, but they used 10 of the child murders to establish a pattern and help prove that he was the murderer. Through evidence, the defense laid out all they could for the jury. So, what we know right now is that he is being tried for 2 murders. So like I said, he's being tried for Nathaniel Carter and Jimmy Payne. So I could not find a lot of information on Jimmy Payne. I did try, but there's not a ton out there that I could find. But we do have a little bit of information that I'll share at the end when I talk about the victims. So here's how they used the 10 boys. So the officer thought, okay, we can establish a pattern of him being a murderer. And this is what they did. So they took 10 boys. So altogether, there's multiple boys, but and girls. So, but they took 10 of those child murders and they used those in the trial to establish a background. So 10 of the boys that they used it was 10 of the boys that they used. So 10 had fibers from Williams' bedspread that was in his room. 8 had Williams' bedroom carpet. 4 of those boys had yellow fibers that was from a blanket that they found under Williams' bed. 9 of the boys had hair from Williams' dog. 7 had fibers from 3 cars that William was known to drive. And 2 of the children were found with hairs from the let's see, it's the bags so out of his car. There was fibers out of his car, sorry. And then they also found blood splatter in one of the cars that matched 2 of the boys, or 2 of the victims. So multiple witnesses say that during the trial, multiple witnesses came forward and said that they had seen Williams with victims that had gone missing, just days before. Williams also attended Terry Pugh's funeral. So Terry Pugh is one of the victims, and he attended his funeral, but had no connection to him at all. In the end, the jury convicted Williams, and he is still serving his 2 life sentences in Telfair State Prison in Georgia. He was denied parole in 2019 and is eligible again in 2027. After the trial, Williams still maintains that he was wrongfully convicted and he didn't do any of it. So he is still in jail and currently saying that he is innocent, and that he had nothing to do with it. He is still saying that he didn't do it. Jury members stated after that, he was convicted, that it was 2 things that ultimately made them decide that they were gonna convict him. So the first thing is they were allowed to go to the river where the body, or the presumed body, was dumped over the railing and on the bridge where the police officer had heard the splash. So it is presumed, so they went there. The jury was allowed to go, and they had the station wagon there, and they lowered the back of the station wagon. And one of the jurors said that's when she knew that he did it, because she said, he was a short, small man, and they were saying that the victim was so much bigger than him, and that he couldn't have lifted him by himself. So the lady said, you know what? No, I could do this, because when you look at the pictures, if you want to go and look them up, you can see that the back end of the station wagon, when you pull it down, it almost lines up with the wall of the river, or the railing with the river, because it was so low. And she said, I could do this. I could have pulled a body out of there and dumped a body. And she was, late 30s maybe. So that's what ultimately in the end made her decide that she would have, she was going to convict and say that he did it. The second thing is that they ended up putting Williams on the stand during his trial, and it was a 2-day a 2-day questioning, and on the second day, he absolutely lost it. He went crazy, yelling, cussing, calling the jurors, the law enforcement, everybody, all kinds of names and under the sun, and that he didn't do anything. And but they said that he just went nuts. And that's, some of them said that's what made us decide that, yep, he did it, because he could lose his temper so easily. Those are the two things that, I found, jurors were talking about after the trial. So, due to all of this, 24 youth murders were closed, and they're closed. However, the story does not end there. So, he's convicted. He's in prison, still in prison. But the story has not ended. So I just want to take a little bit of a pause and talk about what we're making here. So I'm currently pouring the glow-in-the-dark stuff for, these are the, pieces. I want to say checkers, but they're not checkers. Dominoes, for the domino pieces. So I put green glow-in-the-dark in here with pink glitter. We're going to see how it turns out, because it looks very pink because of the glitter. So I don't know if this is going to turn out the way I want it to, but we shall see. There's a piece of something. All right, you hear a lot of racket in my house. All my children are home, and one is cooking dinner for me. All right, so let's get back to our story. So these are full. We're going to move to the chest pieces. So now, again, like I said, it's not the end of the story. So in 1986, a Georgia FBI agent, that had been conducting a secret investigation, was looking into the KKK, in some of the murders. So they believed that potentially the KKK, was involved in some of these child murders. So, but it was a secret investigation, and they were working in tandem. So they were working at the same time, that they were investigating Williams for these murders as well. So the FBI had been working in tandem with, the special task force that was involved in looking into Williams and these child murders, and the FBI had discovered that members of the KKK had been involved in sorry, I'm trying to look and read at the same time. Luby Getter murder, and linked to 14 other murders through these child murders. So Luby was connected to Williams. So they're saying that Williams killed him. They closed his case, when Williams was convicted. However, Charles T. Sanders was a known narcotics dealer, and KKK, recruiter. And he told an informant of the FBI that he intended to kill Luby several weeks before he died, because he backed a go-kart into his car. And he allegedly said, and I quote, this is his words, not mine, "I'm going to kill that black bastard. I'm going to strangle him with my dick." Yeah, so this guy was just livid over a go-kart being backed into his car, but he allegedly said that, he was going to kill him to an informant. After Luby's murder, Don was recorded. So Don was a brother of Sanders, and it was recorded telling another Klan member, I'm going out looking for another little boy. So it was recorded on a recorder that's what he was going to go out and do. Sanders was also found to have a matching scar to a white man with a jagged scar on his neck, according to the witness that seen Luby get into the car with these two white men. The dog that Sanders had was also very similar to the dog that Williams had, and the hairs were connected to multiple murders. So, was it really Williams' dog, or was it Sanders' dog? The report that was released in 1981, as it said that the FBI and other law enforcement officers opted to close their investigation and seal the findings of the investigation. In 1985, a handwritten transcript was secretly given, or that was a transcript of a conversation between Klan members about Libby's murder was anonymously sent to Williams' attorney. So in 1981, Williams requests to have a new trial where investigators from the FBI and Georgia law enforcement both testified that they had little to no knowledge of the FBI investigation. So they're getting on the stand saying they had no clue, or they didn't know about it, or they had very little information that they could give them. At the same trial, a Georgia FBI agent reported that Sanders had admitted to killing Luby while an informant was wearing a concealed microphone. So he got up on the stand and said, "Hey, yep, he admitted to it. We recorded it. The informant had a microphone, and we caught it on tape." In 2003, Louis Graham reported the Atlanta child murders. In 2007, in 2003, Louis Graham, who was the mayor, reopened the Atlanta child murders. In 2007, they started DNA testing on the dog hair and human hair and blood. Those results, though, did not help prove Williams' innocence. The dog hair showed that it could still be linked to Williams' dog. The human hairs found on two victims were found to match Williams. So they believed that they were Williams, but then the DNA test proved that they matched Williams. But in spite of all of this, Williams still remains in prison. But is there enough doubt that maybe, just maybe, he didn't do it? Now, my crafting crime friends, what do you think? Did Williams do it? Did the KKK do it? Were they both involved? Did they have two serial killers out doing things at the same time? Were they involved in murders together? Was someone making Williams do it? Was someone making Williams get these children to trust him, and then they were killing them? In my research, I did find that Williams witness seeing Williams with some of the victims. There was also a second man with him. So that's the other thing. A lot of the witnesses say that they seen Williams with some of these children, but there was also another man with him when they seen them. So that's another sketchy part too. So it sounds like maybe he wasn't working alone. So what was that? What was it that really happened? No one knows. Tell me in the comments what you think. Let's just recap just a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the victims. So remember, Williams has been convicted for 2 murders. Now, in my research, I believe that he did indeed was the one that dumped that body off of the bridge that night. I think that I truly do believe that he is the one that did that. However, there is enough doubt that I wonder if someone else was involved with everything that he had going on. And the reason I say that is because there's multiple witnesses that say, hey, like, we seen another man with him. And the witnesses even said that he had an afro and a goatee. So if you look up pictures of Williams, and I'll post some, he does have an afro. But he is clean shaven. He does not have a goatee. And they also said that the other man was very muscular and built. And Williams is not that. He's the opposite. He's a very small man. So I think that he might have been involved. Now, it is said that the KKK members were trying to create a race war at that time. So in researching this, I guess I never really put, two and two together that, like, slavery and, like, racism was still so close to when I was born. I didn't, I guess I just didn't grow up. I didn't grow up hating people, I guess. So I found that, interesting. But the KKK were known for hanging people, raping people, doing all kinds of crimes. So were they involved? Were they part of it? So I do have questions. I have questions, then again, was someone, again, like, they were holding something against Williams, and they were making him gain the trust of these kids, because these kids were coming home with these flyers to their parents saying, Mom, there's one mother that testified that, he came home and it was an interview she did, that he had come home saying, oh, Mom, like, I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to buy you a house, all this stuff, because he was going to go and be a singer, because Williams had given him this flyer saying that, oh, I'm going to make you rich and famous. So, I just wonder, if someone was working with him to get the trust of these children, and then, they were killing them, which would be extremely sad if that was the case too. So I do believe that Williams had a connection in some way, but through my research and the things that I've been looking at, I don't think that he was working alone. I think that someone was helping him. And at the end of the day, you have to choose who you are. And if you choose to murder, I get it. People are scared for their life. But I do think that someone was working with him to do these murders for sure. So we are at the end of our story. Still have quite a bit of this crafting to do, but I'm going to pause, and I want to read the victims to you. So I'll read them in order. So in 1979, in the middle of 1979, Edward Hope Smith, they called him Teddy, was 14, and Alfred Evans, 13, disappeared 4 days apart. Their bodies were found on July the 28th in a wooded area. Smith was found with a .22 caliber gunshot wound to the upper back. They were discovered to be the first victims of the Atlanta child killers. So Edward Smith actually is still, his murder is still listed as unresolved. And Alfred Evans is actually tied to Williams, and they closed his case. So that right there is why I think that there was either KKK members going on and Williams killing people, or something else. Like because why did we close one and not the other when they were found right beside each other? Okay, then on September 4th, the next victim, 14-year-old Milton Harvey, who is also unsolved, disappeared while on an errand to the bank for his mother. He was riding a bike and was found a week later in a remote area of Atlanta. His body was not recovered until November of that year. So some of these kids went missing and they were gone for a while. On October the 21st, 9-year-old Yuff Bell went to the store to buy Burton snuff for the neighbor Ula Birdsong in Reese's Grocery in McDonald's on McDonald Street. My husband came down. A witness said she saw Yerf near the intersection of McDaniel and Fulton getting into a blue car before he disappeared. His body was found on November 8th in the abandoned E.P. Johnson Elementary School by a school janitor who was looking for a place to urinate. Bell's body was found clothed in the brown cutoff shorts that he was last seen wearing, though they had a piece of masking tape stuck to them. He had been hit over the head twice and what caused his death was strangulation. Police did not immediately link this to the disappearance to the previous killing. So originally they did not link this to part of the Atlanta child murders, but later they did. In 1980, on March 4th of 1980, the first female victim, a 12-year-old Angel Lennar, also unsolved, is still listed as unsolved, disappeared. She left her house around 4 p.m. wearing a denim outfit and was last seen at a friend's house watching the television program Sanford and Sons. Lennar's body was found 6 days later in a wooded vacant lot along Campbellton Road. Please forgive me if I butcher these names. Wearing the same clothes in which she had left home. A pair of white underwear that did not belong to her was stuffed in her mouth, and her hands were bound with electrical cord, and the cause of death was strangulation. On March 11th, 1 week after Lennar's disappearance, 11-year-old Jeffrey Mist, which is also still unsolved, disappeared while on an errand for his mother. He was wearing gray jogging pants, brown shoes, and a white-green shirt. Months later, a girl said he saw him get into a blue car with a light-skinned man and a dark-skinned man. The body of Jeffrey Mathis was found in the briar-covered patch of woodlands 11 months after his disappearance, by which time it was not possible to identify the cause of death. On May 18th, 15-year-old Eric Middlebrooks disappeared. His case was closed and connected to Williams. He was last seen answering the telephone at home and then leaving in a hurry on his bicycle, taking his hammer to repair the bicycle. His body was found the following day next to his bicycle in the rear garage of an Atlanta bar. The bar was located next door to what was then the Georgia Department of Offender Rehabilitation. His pockets were turned inside out, and his chest and arms had slight stab wounds, and the cause of his death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. A few weeks before his disappearance, Middlebrooks had testified against 3 juveniles in the robbery case. So, again, little strange. We connected Williams to that one, but there was other circumstances. But I don't know. I am still up in the air. Did he do it? Did he not? On June 9th, 12-year-old Christopher Richardson went missing on his way to a local pool. He was last seen walking towards the DeKalb Country Midway Recreation Center in Midway Park. He was wearing blue shorts and a light blue skirt and blue tennis shoes. His body was found until the following January, clothed in unfamiliar swim trunks, along with the body of later victim Earl Terrell. The cause of Richardson's death was not determined. He was also linked to Williams, and his case was closed. On July the 22nd, 7-year-old LaTanya Wilson disappeared from her parents' apartment. So this is the only one that was still at home. So she disappeared from her parents' apartment. According to witnesses, she appeared to have been abducted by 2 men, one of whom who was seen climbing into the apartment window and then holding Wilson in his arms as he spoke to another man in the parking lot. On October the 18th, Wilson's body was found in a fenced-in area at the end of Varbin Street in Atlanta. By then, the body was skeletonized and no cause of death could be established, and her murder has gone unsolved. The next day, on June 23rd, 10-year-old Aaron Weich disappeared after having been seen near a local grocery store getting into a blue Chevrolet and with either 1 or 2 black men. A female witness said that she saw Weich being led from Turner's Corner grocery store by a 6-foot-tall, 180-pound black male, approximately 30 years old with a mustache and a goatee. The witness's description of the car matched the description of a similar car implicated in an earlier Jeffrey Madison disappearance. At 6 p.m., Weich was seen at a shopping center. The following day, Weich's body was found under the bridge, and official cause of death was asphyxiation from a broken neck suffered in a fall. he was linked to Williams, and the case was closed. In July of 1980, two more children, 9-year-old Anthony Carter and 10-year-old Earl Terrell, were murdered. Williams was connected to both of those, and both of those cases were closed. Did not give me a lot of information of how they passed. Clifford Jones, age 13, disappeared on August 20th. He was found dead from strangulation. His body was found on August 21st behind a dumpster in the rear of a former Hollywood Plaza shopping center. That murder was also linked to Williams and closed. Darren Glass, age 10, was reported missing on September the 14th, and his body has never been recovered, and his murder still is unsolved. Charles Stephen, age 12, was reported missing on October 9th, and his body was found next to the next day on Norman Berry Drive near the entrance of a trailer park. Stephen's body was missing his t-shirt and one of his shoes. He was still wearing his dark blue pants. Police determined that his cause of death was asphyxiation. Rub marks were also identified on his nose and mouth. Dog hairs and 2 Caucasian hairs were found on the body, along with 2 pubic hairs, which did not belong to Stevens or Williams, and which were found in his boxers 950 feet away. The state considered the pattern case in Williams' trial. So this was connected to Williams, but then was later found that, the hairs didn't match Williams. It was connected to Williams and closed. And this was considered the pattern case that led to the conviction of Williams. Aaron Jackson, age 9, went missing on November the 1st. His body was discovered the next day, strangled, laying face up in a riverbank. That case was connected to Williams and closed. Patrick Rogers, age 16, knew several of the previous victims. He went missing on November the 30th. His body was found on December the 10th in the Chattahoochee River. Police speculated that he was dropped from the bridge above. That one was connected to Williams, and that case was closed. In 1981, the murders continued on into 1981, and the first known victim in the new year was 14-year-old Luby Getter, who disappeared on January 3rd. Getter's body was found on February 5th. Getter's friend, 15-year-old Terry Pugh, was missing in January. An anonymous caller told police that where to find Pugh's body. Terry lived in the same apartment as Edward Smith, who was killed in 1979. And then in March of 1981, 6 more bodies were discovered, believed to be linked to the previous homicide. Along the deceased was body of 21-year-old Eddie Dukin, the first adult victim. On April 20th, a 20-year-old Larry Rogers, a 28-year-old John Porter, and a 21-year-old Jimmy Ray Payne were all murdered. And Porter and Payne were ex-convicts and had just been released from Arendelle State Prison after serving time for burglary. So these were all the adult victims. On May 12th of 1981, FBI agents found a body of a 17-year-old William Billy Starr Barnett on the curb in a wooded area near his home. A witness, 32-year-old Harold Wood, a custodian for the Southwest High School, had run out of gas about a mile from the scene. Wood described a black man standing over and observing the location where the body was found before driving away in a white over blue Cadillac. All of those murders in 1981 were connected to Williams, and they were all close. And then in May of 1981, the last reported victim was added to the list of 27-year-old Nathaniel Carter. He was last seen by Gardner Robert I Henry at the entrance of the theater in Atlanta, reportedly holding hands with Wayne Williams. His body was discovered 2 days later. I did find a little bit on Patrick Baltazar. He was also murdered and convicted and was tied to Williams. He walked to an amateur boxing match in downtown Atlanta, and his body was found by a man a few feet down from in an embankment. Curtis Walker. These are ones that I did not find a lot on. So Curtis Walker went missing when he was walking home from the grocery store, and his body was discovered in the South River. So that's when I told you that they started dumping the bodies in the rivers because they were trying to, wash away evidence. Joseph Bell last seen on March 2nd, and he worked at a fast food job, and his body was found in the South River. Timothy Hill, found wearing only his underpants, found in the Chattahoochee River. Body had been in the river for about 2 weeks. I think I have one more. And then Jimmy Ray Payne. So he's the other one that ultimately he was convicted for, and he's the one of the ones that are that Williams is serving his 2 life sentences for. His body was also discovered in the Chattahoochee River and found by a boy. So what's even more sad is that a lot of these bodies are being found by young children. That's what makes it even more sad. So not only is it children, but it's children finding the children. He was last seen going to the coin shop to sell old coins. His sister said he later had an appointment for a job interview as a concrete worker, but he never made it to that interview. So it's a sad story all the way around. It's sad that anybody dies, let alone be murdered. It's sad when it's not solved. And what's even more sad is that it was mostly children. During the time of the KKK, I'm glad I didn't live in that time. I could not imagine what life was like for African Americans at that time. And just to know that, even just as recent as, KKK was trying to create a race war, in 1981. It's crazy to me, anyway. And then, again, just really sad. And I still do actually wonder if Williams is responsible for it. I really do, because there's so much evidence that points that he isn't, or he had a partner, or that him and the KKK were killing people, and there's so many ifs. It's just crazy. So currently he is still in prison, and he still says that he is innocent, and he is trying to still get out. I did see in an interview where he said that he would be applying for his release again, and I think it was 2027, that he's allowed to apply for parole again, because he is still convinced that he did not do it. So that is our craft and crime for March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So I hope all of you enjoyed the story. If you want any information on it, there's tons of information on the internet, but please put in the comments what you think. Did he do it or did he not? Was it him and the KKK? Who was his partner? Who was the dark-skinned man that was with him that was taking kids? So tell me what you think in the comments. And I will see you guys next time for True Crime and Crafting.